Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Saturday, March 15th. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far today. This is episode 510 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Of course, appreciate all of those tuning in on all the different audio podcast platforms. And today, we've got some more New York Jets free agency news to discuss, as the Jets have made a few more moves, continuing along their trend of depth additions and young players. We will break down all the latest signings, latest additions today on the podcast. As always, though, before we begin, we've got to get into our podcast partners, starting with our friends over at BetUS, America's favorite online sportsbook. If you want to get in on any of the sports betting action or slots and casino games, check out BetUS and use my link in the description of this video to get a 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. Also, our friends over at SeatGeek. If you want any of the hottest and best tickets in sports or entertainment, check out SeatGeek, and at checkout, use code BUBSONSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase and get yourself out to some awesome events. And of course, our friends over at Huga House. If you want any of their new arrival hats or original hats, along with new sweatshirts, check out Huga House. At checkout, use code BUBS for 15% off any purchase. And when you use that code on any purchase, you'll get 30% off your second purchase with that code BUBS. So check them out and get yourself some awesome Huga House swag. So here we go, episode 510. Thank you, as always, for joining me. A little Saturday afternoon episode here on the podcast. And yesterday evening, the New York Jets, evening into the night, the New York Jets, Darren Muji, Aaron Glenn, and the new regime continued to make free agency signings as we kind of close out the first full week of free agency. And they continue along the same trend that they've been along this entire last week or so, which has been young depth additions with potential upside. So we'll just go in order here. We'll start on the offensive side of the football, and we'll take a look at two special teams players that they also picked up. They also added a punter as well. But yesterday they added Tyler Johnson. No details yet on the year of this contract or money. So no contract details yet. Expect it to be, again, a short, cheap contract, which we've seen a lot of, where these guys can come in, Jets try and get the most out of them, and you see what happens here down the road. Tyler Johnson's entering his sixth season in the NFL, just 26 years old. He'll be 27 in August, so when the season kicks off, he'll be 27, which is still, of course, well south of 30 and still on the younger side of things. Fifth-round pick, 161st overall in 2020 by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, went to Minnesota. And the last 2 years, especially last season mainly, spent time with the Rams. Last season, 2024, played 15 games, had 26 receptions, 41 targets, 291 yards, 11.2 yards per reception, and a touchdown. When you look at his career numbers, he has played in a career 47 games, 76 receptions, 117 targets, 828 yards, 10.9 yards per reception, and 4 touchdowns. Tyler Johnson, those numbers don't pop off the chart, but I do think this is an intriguing signing, and a signing, again, with some upside for a couple different reasons. I'll give you a couple different numbers here, and then we'll kind of break down what his role can potentially be on this team. He has caught 13 of 19 contested catches in his career, which I think is an interesting thing to note. Always a good attribute for any receiver to have, especially Johnson, who is only 6'1", 208, not necessarily your bigger body, physical jump ball receiver, but he's able to make contested catches. At least he's been able to through the first couple years of his career since entering the league in 2020. Last season, in those 15 games played, he didn't have a single drop, which I think is notable. This is a Jets receiving core that has struggled a lot with drops. You look at Allen Lazard, talked about him a lot. He has dropped a lot of footballs in his career, and of course, with his time with the Jets. Johnson's a guy that can, when the ball's thrown his way, he catches the football. I think that's a quality attribute. That's your job as a receiver. And 63% of his yards last season came after the catch. So little contested catchability, a little bit of that ability to, show off some speed, get into the open field, do some damage after the catch. An interesting option here. I'm not going to sit here and say Tyler Johnson and Garrett Wilson's the next 1-2 punch for this team. That's not realistic. I think you're looking at Tyler Johnson as probably a wide receiver 4 with potential wide receiver 3 upside. The point is, this is a low-risk signing with upside. The Jets still have a lot of work to do at receiver, but they get another body in here who is young, 26 years old, has some good attributes, and you see what you can get out of him. You see what he looks like in preseason, see what he looks like in training camp, and again, maybe you develop him into a nice wide receiver 3 for this team, or probably realistically maybe a wide receiver 4. Last year with the Rams, he was kind of more of a wide receiver 5, although he played more like a wide receiver 4. So who knows? You see what you can do, see how much upside you can tap into here with Tyler Johnson, another young depth pickup, which has been a common theme here for the Jets. Moving on now to a couple special teamers that they added. They signed Chris Boyd, similar to Johnson. No new details on this deal yet. Boyd, a cornerback position-wise, but doesn't actually play corner, is a special teams guy. Special teams ace, has been in the league now since 2019, was a 7th-round pick out of Texas, 217th overall by the Minnesota Vikings, spent the first 4 years of his career with the Vikings, then spent 2023 with the Cardinals, and then last season played all 17 games with the Houston Texans. You just look at some of the snaps, breakdowns, played 77% of the Texans special team snaps last year, and it just proves that he is just that special teams ace or that special teams primary player, rather, not necessarily an ace. More so just that special teams role. 687 snaps on defense since entering the league. Doesn't play defense. You're picking up a special teams guy here. Boyd probably might be known by some Jet fans, might be known by some NFL fans. If you recall, Chiefs Texans in the playoffs this year, he pushed his coach Frank Ross, and there was actually an expert here on SNY when the signing was made earlier today about the issue between Ross and Chris Boyd on the field. D'Amico Ryans at the time commented on it. He downplayed the shove after the game, didn't feel that it was in a disrespectful manner. Ryans also said, I think it was more so he was fired up, only fired up, and he thought he made a play to help us. So that narrative that he's pushing a coach, that's incorrect. Boyd forced the fumble, but was penalized on the kickoff, yada, yada, yada. Other aspect of this, I was just too excited, did something that I shouldn't have done, learning from it, Boyd said. Keep my helmet on. Boyd added that he loves Frank. Frank Ross, of course, is the coach that he pushed, and apologized to Ross for the tempers flaring because his response is not in his character. I love everybody here. I love my coach. I never disrespect anybody. I apologize to everybody. Ross told me don't worry about that. So that whole incident, I'm sure the Jets looked into it. Doesn't seem like it was anything major. Texans sort of downplayed it. You come in here and you see what you can get out of him. The Jets are making an effort here to revamp the special teams. Last year was a terrible year for the special teams. Kick returning, coverage, of course, kicks were awful. Punting-wise, they were fine. Thomas Morstead was, of course, electric as always. One of the best players on the field for the Jets, which is all you need to know about where this team has been the last couple years. But of course, Zerline took a massive step back. You had some issues with kick returning, with Gibson taking a step back. So you add Boyd here into the mix. Now, speaking of Gibson, speaking of kick returning, the Jets actually make a really nice move as well yesterday by re-signing Kene Wangu. 1 year, $2.5 million deal. I like this move here for the Jets. If you remember last season, Kene Wangu came in the Seattle game, was activated for that game, and first kickoff opportunity, here he comes, 99-yard touchdown against the Seahawks. He finished last year with 3 kickoff returns for 157 yards and that touchdown. I think there's a good chance. I think he should be the kick returner this year. Xavier Gibson, nothing against him. He regressed last year. If we're being honest, Xavier Gibson, outside of the crazy punt return on Monday Night Football, the night Rodgers goes down to walk it off against the Buffalo Bills, he's kind of plateaued since that point. And the Jets need a little extra juice from a kick returning and even potentially punt returning perspective as well. So I think there's a good chance Kene Wangu and Gibson probably battle it out at camp, and I think there's a good chance Wangu wins this. He was a former, actually, second-team All-Pro with the Vikings in 2022. You look at his career numbers, 71 attempts, 2,036 yards, and 4 touchdowns from a kick returning perspective. So has put together a nice little career here from a kick returning perspective. And you saw last year some of the speed and juice that he brought when he was out there in just his short amount of time in the 2 games that he played. Of course, the 99-yard touchdown against Seattle being the biggest highlight. So I think this is a solid move for the Jets. Again, does this mean they're going to go win the Super Bowl? No, that's not what they're going to do next year. That's not where they are in. But it's another under the radar. They're adding a lot of depth. They're focusing a little bit on special teams here. They need better special teams. You know, special teams is always that type of spot where if it's doing well, you don't talk about it. You only talk about special teams if they're playing poorly. And that's what happened last year. Special teams was a complete disaster. And I think kick returning wise, punt returning wise, you want a little bit more juice. The Jets need a little bit more production. Gibson hasn't done enough. Nwangu last year did some really good things. You see what he can do, bring him in the camp, compete. And I think there's a good chance that's probably your week 1 kick returner. I think that should be the case on a 1-year and cheap contract. The Jets also added a punter yesterday. So look, I think there's a lot of Jet fans. There's been some Jet fans panicking. Oh, notice this team, Thomas Morstead's gone. No, I don't think so. I think this is just the Jets adding somebody else, adding depth at that spot, bring in like a camp leg. I think also you see what happened with Zerline last year where he fell off a little bit. Are the Jets just adding insurance just in case that happens with Morstead, just in case there's an injury? He is getting older. Morstead's still this team's punter. I doubt Austin McNairma is going to come in here and beat out Thomas Morstead. I don't see that happening. I think this is just every team kind of has those 1 or 2 signings that you kind of just add a body at a spot. I think that's what the Jets are doing here. Maybe in August, this will be a different story, but right now, I don't think there's really much substance to the Jets signing a punter. I think Morstead will be out there week 1, and as long as he's healthy and playing well, I don't see why he won't play this entire season as the Jets punter. I really wouldn't look too much into that move, in my opinion. Again, we could sit here in August and maybe we've got a different story if there's a true punter competition going on. But right now, as we sit here on March 15th, I don't see that happening. So anyway, that'll do it. 4 moves for the New York Jets. Wide receiver and some special teams help. So let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Still, of course, a lot more work to do. I would still like see another receiver. You still need some more help at tight end. Would like to maybe add another right tackle. Do you go down the Jedrick Wills route, try and get him on a flyer with upside? Of course, a former first-round pick. Do you see if he could stay healthy, that he could be something? I also think the Jets are going to do a lot of building through the draft here. I think they're kind of more supplementing depth through free agency and then try and find your starters through the draft. That's the approach it seems like they're starting to take, but only time will tell. So let me know what you think in the comment section down below. We'll, of course, be here reacting to any other moves that come out. And until next time, JETS, 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 Jets.